after both Butch and Snap Capone noticed the OC members, they ran into a cost-cutter store. However, the OC gang members began to fire toward them, hitting an innocent 18-year-old named Ryan.
Bro, oh my goodness. Bro, they have no aim. I'm gonna keep saying it. Like, yo, they suck at aiming.
Badly pronounced.
Yo, too, we back with the Benjamin boy. Go ahead in the reaction. Listen, we got the Peckham Boys, London's deadliest gang. Now, this video right here is 54 minutes. Basically an hour, bro. So what I need y'all to do is make sure you watch the whole thing for me, bro. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure to post notifications. Let's get right into the video, man. Appreciate all of y'all been showing me. Let's go, man. Let's go.
All of the opinions used within this video are mine alone. Everything in this video has been taken from publicly available sources, and any footage or video used falls under the doctrine of fair use. I have made every effort to ensure all of the sources used within this video are accurate. However, I am not responsible for content that third parties publish. Without further ado, sit back and enjoy today's video. When it comes to the UK road rap and drill movement, there is no one quite as prominent and influential as the rappers from Peckham. Example being Giggs, who pioneered the modern-day sound and blew up in the scene off the back of his tracks like Talking the Hardest, which has become dubbed the UK's unofficial national anthem. Despite this, however...
Wait, that's really a national anthem? I gotta listen to that. Talking the Hardest, that's a national anthem? Okay.
What fans weren't aware of was the fact that even though Giggs had released extremely popular tracks, he was still deeply entrenched in the gang life in southeast London's district of Peckham. This seeing multiple shootings, stabbings, and murders. So much so that residents in some of Peckham's estates even began to refer to the area as Pecknarm, or more simply, the Narm. Like
it was that bad, Pecknarm?
The violence in Peckham to Vietnam,
right?
Similarly to how Chicago was nicknamed Chi Rap.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Violence in Peckham has spanned decades and was often the result of gangs in the area warring it out in the streets. The most prominent and dangerous of these gangs, in fact, being the Peckham Boys, who have several offshoot gangs as well as affiliations with other crews. Now, Peckham is a district located within the London borough of Southwark. This borough actually being ranked among the top 10 most dangerous boroughs that make up the larger city of London. In 2023, the borough of Southwark had a crime rate of around 114 crimes per 1,000 people.
Bro, what? Nah, that's a crazy number. What, bro?
This comparing poorly to London's crime rate as a whole. Following a 2021 census, the London borough of Southwark had a population of around 311,000 residents, whilst Peckham had an estimated 17,000 residents. This is crazy, as Peckham is relatively small, although this hasn't seemed to impact its crime, as at one point Peckham was named as one of the most dangerous areas in London, mainly being due to the Peckham Boys gang that controlled the district of Peckham. Within this video, I will take a deep and detailed dive into what made the Peckham Boys one of the deadliest gangs in the entire...
I almost forgot. Shout out to my boy, UK Drill. Is it UK Drill? Yeah, UK Drill plug, man. Shout out to him. Want to make sure I shout him out, bro, for this video. Always dropping knowledge.
As well as the many rivalries that the Peckham Boys had found themselves in, thus resulting in numerous shootings, stabbings, as well as over 20 murders in relation to the Peckham Boys.
Yo, I just seen a 16-year-old get shot. Hold on.
YouTube says only 8% of you are subscribed. So if you enjoy this content, feel free to subscribe, as it takes time to make these videos. And also,
you know, I don't know why I didn't subscribe to you again. Hold on, let me subscribe. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to him and me, man. I'll just get back into the video. Let's go. Damn. Let's go.
So helps out the channel, but without further ado, sit back and enjoy one of the craziest videos I have made on this channel.
I ain't nothing. Had you running in the shop like you're buying something.
TV will blow your head over your shoulder.
Damn.
Man, look at the fucking jig.
Tried it, young guys.
Okay, man.
We had them playing Took and Artists in a club and that.
They're having a whole crowd scream that. Hold on.
Covered up instant wounds. Chin splashed him when I splashed him too. Six splashed him, piece I've done too.
PS! PS! PS!
Hey fam, ask Nags who done it.
You know Russians, man! Why are people for doing that?
The Peckham Boys
Hey,
are a large
yo.
street gang from Peckham. Within the SE15 postcode, the gang was predominantly based around North Peckham. More specifically, the North Peckham Estate, Gloucester Grove Estate, Willowbrook Estate, Camden Estate, and the Sumner Estate. These 5 estates being referred to as the 5 Estates. Now, in the 1990s, these large estates within Peckham each had smaller sets that controlled the estate.
Yeah, it go back to the 90s. That's crazy. Hey, before we keep going to the video, make sure y'all drop y'all from in the comments.
And later on, all of these small street gangs would link up to form the larger Peckham Boys collective. Example being the Peckham Grove Boys, the North Peckham Boys, the Yellow Brick Massive, the Outlaws, and the Acorn Boys. It's rumored that the larger Peckham Boys gang had originated in the 1970s. By the 90s,
Bro.
the two main gangs in Peckham included that of the Firehouse Crew, as well as YPB, or the Younger Peckham Boys. Later on, however, other gangs became prominent, like PYG, or Pecknarm Young Gunners, SI or Shoot Instant, and SN1, or Spare No One. During the 1990s,
PYG probably the hardest one.
the Peckham Boys had a very deadly gang feud with the Ghetto Boys from Deptford, as well as Brixton, all which will be discussed in detail within this video. Going into the 2000s, the Peckham Boys was subdivided into multiple subsets based around age range, example being PK or the Peckham Kids, the Younger Peckham Boys, as well as the Younger Peckham Boys. In the mid-2000s, however, new names of the various sets began to emerge, example being SN1, previously the Peckham Boys, PYG or Pecknarm Young Gunners, previously the Younger Peckham Boys, and SI or Shoot Instant, which was previously known as
I ain't gonna lie, that Shoot Instant kind of tough. I can't lie. Shoot Instant.
Peckham
SI.
YPB. Now, the Peckham Boys
It's a fire name, I can't lie.
was in the streets in the 1990s. It was going into the 2000s, however, that they became one of the most infamous gangs in London as a whole, even making national headlines at the start of the 2000s. In July 2000, a gunman from Peckham noticed a group of people standing outside of the Chicago nightclub within Peckham, South.
9 injured in the Yardie shooting?
London.
Damn.
The gunman started firing indiscriminately into the crowd, hitting 9 people. Among the injured included a 15-year-old girl, as well as 4 other females. One man, who was
Damn.
27, was found with 2 shots to the chest after the shooting, and was described as in critical condition. He, as well as the 8 others, were rushed to hospital, and luckily, all survived the attack. The crime was quickly
That's good that no one died. That's crazy
due
though.
to how shocking it was. And at the time, this was one of the worst shootings that London had ever seen, shocking nearby communities. This Chicago nightclub, however, was known by Peckham gang members, and 6 months after this deadly shooting, a man was shot dead in a double shooting outside of the same Chicago nightclub. Because of this, it was believed that the nightclub shut down not too long after the violence had occurred.
Of course.
Prominent
Bro, if you're a club and then you have niggas dying inside of your club getting shot at, like that is crazy, bro. No one's gonna want to go there, bro. They're gonna be like, nah, we just not getting shot tonight. We just trying to have a good time.
Peckham
That's
rapper
bad for business.
who will become a lot more relevant later, actually referenced this same nightclub in a later song, in which he claimed that he wasn't at the Chicago's nightclub to rave, but instead to catch his rivals with a big strap.
Hey,
Just
yo.
a few months following this wave of violence, in November 2000, a 17-year-old was stabbed to death in a North Peckham estate. His body was later discovered in the back of a vehicle parked at King's College Hospital within South London. An investigation was launched after the attack, and a 17-year-old youth was later arrested and charged. However, I couldn't find if he was found guilty. Rest in peace. Only 9 days later,
Damn.
on 27th of November 2000, the community would be shocked at the death of a 10-year-old schoolboy who was shockingly killed by young members of the Untouchables, which was a smaller gang located within Peckham. On the 27th of November 2000 at around 4:30 p.m., 10-year-old Damiola Taylor left Peckham Library and traveled toward the North Peckham estate. Whilst on his way home, he was surrounded by a gang of youths believed to be from the Untouchables gang. One of the youths then
He was 10 years old?
used a broken glass bottle and thrusted it toward 10-year-old Damiola Taylor's thigh, sadly resulting in him being stabbed.
Bro, that
This
is
wound
sad,
severed
bro.
an artery, however, and resulted in Damiola Taylor losing quite a lot of blood on the scene. He was found in the stairwell and was rushed to King's College Hospital, where he sadly died hours later. A murder investigation was then launched. However, it would take a few years for the people responsible to receive punishment. In 2002,
Damn.
4 youths, including 2 16-year-old brothers, were arrested and even went on trial for the murder of 10-year-old Damiola Taylor. Following the trial, all 4 were acquitted of the murder, as the witness was
Bro, what? Nah.
supposedly unreliable. Police continued to investigate following this, and actually found Damiola Taylor's blood on a teen known as Danny Preddy's shoes. In 2005,
Good, bro, because that nigga was 10 years old, bro. Like, that's foul, bro.
Danny Preddy and his brother
That's
Lee
crazy.
Preddy, who were 16 and 17, were arrested, as well as another 19-year-old man. In 2006, the Preddy brothers were found guilty of Damiola's manslaughter, and were both sentenced to 8 years after being found guilty of Damiola's murder.
That's
This
it?
case receiving widespread attention due to how shocking it was. Rest in peace, Damiola Taylor.
Damn.
It's believed that in 2000, a well-respected member of the Peckham Boys known as Tipsy, who was often credited to be one of the richest members of the Peckham Boys at the time. Anyways, he was arrested after being caught with firearms as well as drugs. He was charged and later sentenced to 10 years in prison for the incident. Despite Tipsy's 10-year sentence, however, he was later released in 2004, with this information becoming more relevant as the story goes on.
Wait. He had 10 years. How you get out early? See, that's weird. I ain't gonna lie, that's weird.
So around the early 2000s, the Peckham Boys began to consolidate as one large gang that was based off age range. Example being YYPB, or Younger Peckham Boys, YPB, or Younger Peckham Boys, and finally SN1, which was believed to contain the olders in the gang.
Okay.
Fast forwarding to 2003, due to how large the Peckham Boys gang was, a civil war began to brew. This mainly being due to the presence of a recently recruited Peckham Boys member known as Mender. See, Mender was previously associated with the Ghetto Boys, who were at war with the Peckham Boys at this time. He was later defected from the Ghetto Boys, however, and began to associate himself with their rivals, the Peckham Boys. It's even rumored that at one point, Mender robbed a member of the Peckham Boys. This factor, of course, meant that the membership of the Peckham Boys were split. Some took Mender's side, whilst others didn't agree with it.
Yeah, how you gonna rob? Alright, let's keep going. How you gonna rob niggas?
Sadly,
Yo.
in September 2003, Mender was approached by members believed to be from the Younger Peckham Boys gang. He was then stabbed in the chest by the members who fled seconds later. Emergency services...
It's just like how it is right now. You gotta watch these YNs, boy. These YNs gonna be on your... Yo, they gonna get on you. They gonna be on you.
Long after being stabbed, he was pronounced dead. A murder investigation was launched, and a 17-year-old was sentenced to 11 years, whilst 2 other teens were given 7-year terms after being found guilty of Mender's manslaughter. Rest in peace, Mender. Shortly after this, in 2004, after serving around 3 years of his sentence, Peckham legend Tipsy was released in Cambridge to carry out a 4-week placement, where he would be helping disabled people. Just a few days after being released, on the 3rd of July 2004 at around 7 p.m., Tipsy would be riding his motorcycle through Camberwell High Street when he was approached by rivals in a car and was rammed off his motorcycle. One of the
This sounds like a movie, bro.
then exited the vehicle and stood over Tipsy, shooting him multiple times in the head and chest before the attack was fled seconds later. Tipsy was rushed to a nearby hospital, but was sadly pronounced dead on arrival, with yet another murder investigation being launched. Despite an investigation, as well as one arrest, the murder has actually remained unsolved. One man was charged, however his trial was discontinued and he was found not guilty, leaving the murder of Tipsy unsolved.
And they got away, bro. R.I.P.
Peace, Tipsy. Just a few
RP,
months
man.
following this, in October 2004, the rivalry between the Peckham Boys and the Ghetto Boys was televised, when a group of Peckham Boys noticed rival Ghetto Boys outside of the Urban Music Awards, which was being held at the Barbican Centre in London. Shortly after both sides noticed one another, 18 shots would be fired by both groups. During this shooting, a 25-year-old innocent woman, Helen Kelly, was hit by a bullet that ricocheted off the wiring in her bra, changing directions and hitting her in the breast. Now, both groups of gang members dispersed shortly after the shooting, with Helen Kelly being rushed to a nearby hospital, where she luckily recovered and survived the attack. An investigation was launched, and later in 2005, 28-year-old Linton Ambersley was jailed for 12 years. Another 28-year-old man known as Tyron Headley was also jailed for assisting an offender. Going into 2005,
Yeah, y'all shot a white woman. It's over. They gonna find y'all niggas.
who hailed from the Peckham Boys gang, was released from prison following a 2.5-year prison sentence after allegedly being charged with a firearm offense in 2003. Anyways, shortly after he was released, the Peckham Boys gang became known under multiple new aliases. The Peckham Boys became known as SN1, which stood for Spare No One. The Younger Peckham Boys became known as SI, or Shoot Instant, whilst the youngest generation, the Younger Peckham Boys, became known as PYG, or Pecknarm Young Gunners. So for simplicity's sake, from now on, I'll refer to the gangs as these 3 main sets. Shortly after this, Giggs, who I just spoke about, began to experiment with music, often going to the studio and recording songs. Eventually, him alongside the SN1 gang released a 24-track mixtape titled Bloody Raw.
Damn.
Actually had a track dedicated to him.
Nah, I ain't gonna lie. This cover art is fire though. Hold on.
No Freestyle, with this song celebrating his freeing from prison. Within this track, Giggs mainly rapped about females, as well as the streets of Peckham. This in fact was one of the first instances of Giggs releasing public music. However, later down the line, Giggs would become one of the biggest UK rappers coming out of Peckham. At the end of August 2005, 4 younger Peckham boys, including Bertz, Tiny Ryder, Timmy, and Diamond, stormed a christening that was being held in Peckham. Bertz then used a gun and shot into the air. This bullet then ricocheted after being shot and hit an innocent woman who was cradling her baby. Sadly,
That's
this woman
sad, bro.
was
R.I.P., bro.
the younger Peckham boys then robbing bystanders and fleeing seconds later. An investigation was launched. However, before police had any information on Bertz, he went on to kill again just weeks later. 2 weeks later, in September 2005, that same YPB member, Bertz, was traveling around Peckham. He noticed a well-known female member of the SN1 gang known as Ruthless. SN1 was actually closely associated with the younger Peckham boys. This didn't matter to Bertz, however, who after noticing Ruthless, then pulled her out from a car and stabbed her multiple times in the heart. Sadly, she died minutes later.
Of course she died. He stabbed her in the heart. My God.
Being launched. Bertz was quickly arrested and charged with both murders. It was said in court that Bertz had attacked Ruthless due to the fact that she was heard disrespecting him on a phone call a day earlier. Bertz confessed to killing Ruthless, however never confessed to killing the innocent woman 2 weeks earlier. After a trial, however, Bertz was found guilty and was sentenced to 30 years in prison for both murders.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yeah,
it's
good.
even believed that following the death of Ruthless, Giggs, also from the SN1 crew, released a track in her remembrance in 2008. This titled Ruthless Freestyle. Rest in peace. Now, in 2006,
That's
a large
crazy.
group of around 30 Shoot Instant gang members from Peckham traveled from their main turf onto the rival Ghetto Boys block. Upon reaching the block, the large group noticed the brother of two prominent Ghetto Boy members known as Smiler and Craver. This man was Jason Gale Bent and was actually stabbed 10 years earlier, causing him to turn his back on the gang violence in the area. Anyways, after the large group of Shoot Instant members noticed Jason Gale Bent, one of them retrieved a firearm and shot toward him. A fight then broke out. However, during this fight, he was stabbed in the heart, with the Shoot Instant members fleeing seconds later. Jason Gale Bent staggered for a few minutes after the attack. However, he collapsed in his home and sadly died. Emergency services and police arrived on the scene shortly following the attack. An investigation was launched. However, it's believed that the murder has remained unsolved, with the police connecting the murder of Jason Gale Bent to the attempted murder of another man in nearby Deptford only a few minutes later. Rest in peace, Jason Gale Bent. Following this, a week later, the Ghetto Boys would plan to drive by shootings outside of schools in Peckham in an attempt at killing YPB members thought to be behind the murder of Jason Gale Bent a week earlier. Their plans were interrupted, however, when police evacuated over 2,000 pupils from Peckham Academy, as well as Harris Girls Academy. The schools were later reopened a few days after the threats when police believed it was safe for the pupils to attend school. Peckham Boys in November 2006 were so influential within the streets, in fact, that they actually appeared in a Time Out magazine being ranked among the top 100 most influential groups within London at the time. Just showing how prominent they had become at the time. However, not everyone knew the violent backstory regarding the gang. That was only going to get worse and more
but back in the day, getting into a magazine, that was big, bro. That was like the equivalent of like getting posted like how it is now, like IG or TikTok or shit, and the shit going viral. You in a magazine, that's viral, I think. I would think so.
In February 2007,
Peckham versus Peckham
gang members were arguing amongst one another, as they had allegedly pulled off a few successful robberies. However, some members didn't split any of the money with the others. Due to this, a group of Peckham members sought out other Peckham members. As a result of this, 15-year-old Michael Dosunmu was shot dead whilst in his bed, with this being a case of mistaken identity, as the attacker—
Oh my gosh, bro, come on.
—to kill his older brother. Only days after this, however, 21-year-old Javari Crichton approached a group of Peckham members to discuss the money made from the robberies. After arriving at the agreed spot, he was stabbed to death by the Peckham gang members. Now, an investigation was launched into both murders. The killing—
Now I see why there was a war, cause bro, he showed up and then he just gets stabbed. He talking about the robbery. He ain't get no. Yeah, that's crazy. That's wild.
However, 2 men were jailed for 30 years in connection to the murder of Michael Dosunmu. The police linked both the murder of Javari Crichton and Michael Dosunmu together and believed it was a result of an internal conflict within the Peckham Boys gang. Rest in peace, both Javari Crichton and Michael Dosunmu. Shortly after these 2 murders, in July 2007, a prominent member of the SN1 gang, known under the street name Raver, was arrested after his car was stopped by police. He was found in possession of a MAC-10 machine gun, 3 handguns, 2 silencers, 379 rounds of ammunition, 60,000 fake pills, and finally thousands of pounds of cocaine.
Nah, he was moving. 60,000 fake ecstasy pills and then 1,000 pounds of coke. Nah, he was getting to the money on.
In the trial,
he was up.
Handguns were investigated and were actually linked to 6 unsolved shootings in the months prior. In the end, however, Raver was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 10 years.
Oh my goodness.
Following this incident, in October 2007, a group of Peckham boys noticed a group of rival Ghetto Boys in New Cross. Both groups began to shoot toward each other. However, sadly during the shooting, an innocent nurse known as Madga Pniewska was hit and sadly died on the scene with both groups dispersed.
Bro, they don't have no aim. they always need some bystander, like citizen, bro. Like,
dispersing after the shooting.
damn.
Emergency services arrived shortly after the shooting. Upon arriving, an investigation was launched into the murder. A Ghetto Boys member known as Toner was arrested and charged. However, he didn't actually shoot Madga, but did know who did, and decided not to snitch, eventually being given 20 years for the incident.
Hey.
Rest in peace.
Hey, he's a real nigga though. I mean that's what comes with being into this gang stuff. You cannot snitch. Once you snitch, it's over for you. Whether you go to jail or you're on the outside, either way you gonna die, bro. You cannot be a snitch. Now, some cases it might work out for some people, like 6ix9ine. I mean, that's the only person I know that it worked out for. But you feel me? That's really a rare occasion. But he wasn't really into the gang deep, like into the deep gang shit. You feel me? So just know that if you're gonna get into that life, bro, you gotta make sure you're not snitching, bro. That's why you should stay away. If you're not ready to do none of this, the time, the killings, none of this, bro, you ain't ready to get shot at, whatever, just stay out the way, bro. I always make sure I let that message be known, bro.
Shortly after this,
that's crazy though.
14th of October 2008, a group of gang members from Woolwich approached a man and asked him where he was from. The man responded Peckham, and was then shot dead before he could say anything else. With the attackers fleeing
Bro, what? All he said was, I'm from Peckham. It's a city. And they just shot him dead because he said I'm from Peckham? Nah, that's wild. No cap. They didn't even let him explain himself, bro. They just said, he said Peckham. Bow.
Shortly after the shooting, this murder has remained unsolved, with police
and it's unsolved
due to the rivalries that the Peckham gangs.
Bro, that's crazy.
It's also known that the man was believed to be innocent and was not in fact involved with the Peckham gangs.
That's sad, bro.
Rest in peace. Now, at the end of 2007, Giggs released one of his first albums titled Ard Bodied. This album, in fact, featured one of his biggest songs titled Talkin' to Hardest, which has amassed over 46 million streams on Spotify and 11 million views on YouTube. This track is actually often credited to be the UK's unofficial national anthem, just showing how prominent Giggs had become within the UK rap scene. Now, during the summer months of 2008, both the Ghetto Boys and a member of the OPB gang, a subset of the Shoot Instant gang, known as Killa Kai, arranged to squash the beef between Ghetto and Peckham. The two gangs then decided to attend the Notting Hill Carnival. Around 180 members of both Ghetto and Peckham met each other and made their way toward the carnival. However, they were intercepted by police who thought that both Ghetto and Peckham were going to war one another. This was actually one of the biggest moments in Peckham, as now the gangs in Peckham were affiliated with the Ghetto Boys. Giggs rapped about this incident in the track titled Ruthless Freestyle, where he rapped Ghetto versus Peckham. I ain't on that dead beef, so I holla at my motherfucking guy Smiley. Killa Kai, who operated the link-up, also mentioned it, rapping, I organized ghetto linking NARM. I made history. Darg, I'm a boss in the NARM. It was a southeast link-up. Anyhow, we got Carney, it would have been nuts. The story of both the Peckham and Ghetto beef was eventually adapted into a movie by Rapman titled Blue Story. This movie was an instant hit and was even nominated for multiple awards. Now,
oh, I gotta watch that. Y'all ever watched that movie? Let me know in the comments y'all watched this movie. I gotta see that.
Whilst
That's
the ghetto
tough.
feud between the Ghetto Boys and Peckham was no longer, the Peckham-based gangs had now found themselves in a rivalry with Brixton gangs like OC, which later became 410, as well as Gas, which was predominantly based around the Angeltown estate, which in itself has a long history of gangs on the estate. The most well-known gang that splintered off from Gas Gang was actually Get Back Gang, or 150, which in itself has become a very prominent gang within South London in recent years. This Peckham and Brixton rivalry became very deadly, very quickly, as you will see as this video goes on.
About to get crazy, hold on.
2008, the first instance of this beef kicking off would occur only weeks after the two sides began to rival one another. In August 2008, a group of Brixton gang members believed to be from the OC gang would ride out onto Walworth Road within Walworth, SE17. The OC gang members from Brixton noticed two members of the Shoot Instant gang known as Snap Capone and Butch. After both Butch and Snap Capone noticed the OC members, they ran into a cost cutter store. However, the OC gang members began to fire toward them, hitting an innocent 18-year-old named Ryan.
Bro, oh my goodness. Bro, they have no aim. I'm gonna keep saying it. Like, yo, they suck at aiming.
Sadly pronounced dead seconds after being hit, with the Brixton gang members fleeing. It's rumored that an OC member known as Huss was later arrested for this brazen shooting and was handed 24 years.
Damn.
This was even remembered by SD from Harlem Spartans in 2022, with SD posting this on his story. Rest in peace, Ryan Bravo. A month later, in September 2008, police conducted multiple raids on high-ranking members of the Peckham Peckham boys, leading to multiple arrests. Just under a month following these raids on prominent Peckham boys, in October 2008, members associated with the Brixton gangs noticed 20-year-old Terms, who was a known SN1 member from Peckham. The Brixton members then shot dead Terms as he left his house. Rest in peace, Terms. Due to this, the Peckham and Brixton rivalry became very heated and was
This
talked
shit heating
about
up.
Peckham and Brixton. If you would like a video on the Brixton gangs in the future, let me know in the comments below. Now, around this time, Giggs from the SN1 gang was actually making waves in the UK road rap scene, previously dropping his debut album Walk Into Park earlier in 2008. This album in fact further shone a spotlight on Giggs, who was already gaining a buzz off the back of his track Talkin' to Hardest. In November 2008, Giggs was actually nominated for the BET Awards, eventually winning
That's
Best
tough, especially back in the day. That's tough. Okay.
Pop Act, which was a crazy accomplishment for Giggs, as he was one of the pioneers of the UK road rap scene, as was SN1 as a whole group. Sadly, however, even though all of these new eyes were looking in on the Peckham-based collective, there was still a war brewing in the streets, and in 2009, the war continued.
Damn.
In February 2009, 25-year-old Big Larry, who was alleged to have been a well-respected Peckham older, would be walking down a street in Dulwich when a gunman, believed to be from the SN1 gang, approached him from behind. The gunman then shot 25-year-old Big Larry in the head, killing him instantly.
Damn.
It's rumored that Big Larry actually had a falling out with other Peckham gang members, eventually leading to his death, as he was once a well-known Peckham gang member. An investigation was launched into his murder, however.
Wait, so he used to be with them and he switched? That's
The
crazy.
entire investigation, the murder of Big Larry, remains unsolved. Rest in peace, Big Larry.
I can't say with Peckham though. A lot of these shooters, it's a lot of unsolved cases. I don't know if it's because the police didn't care or they just really couldn't get the evidence. But hey, they getting away. That's one thing I can say, bro. A lot of them are not getting caught. But yeah, right now I feel like it's like 60% unsolved, 40% gets solved. You feel me? And people go to jail right now.
During 2009, police would be looking into one of the Peckham gangs, this being PYG, as they, as well as the other Peckham gangs like SN1 and OPB, had been in an ongoing war with Brixton around this time. Anyways, the solicitors of these PYG members had actually been given access to CCTV that showed both Peckham members as well as Brixton members riding out onto one another. It's rumored that an associate of one of the Peckham gangs then accessed the CCTV and uploaded it onto YouTube, where it gained thousands of views. OC members from Brixton
Yo.
dissing the PYG gang and calling them the police as they had access to the CCTV footage.
Editors, pussies. Man's working in the jail, mate. Man working with the fucking jig.
Tried it, young gunners.
Man came, man done our thing, man was working with the jig.
Following this,
Now that is crazy though. How you gonna start uploading the CCTV? That's
in
wild.
November 2009, 22-year-old Daniel Duke, or Mimer, who was allegedly associated with the MOB gang, which was an acronym for Mandem on Brandon, this being a crew originating from the Brandon estate, SE-17, which was later popularized after Moscow. 17 began to become more prominent on the estate. Anyways, 22-year-old Mimer was shot 3 times near an underground station within Kennington, South London.
Damn.
Police and emergency services quickly arrived on the scene and transported 22-year-old Mimer to a nearby hospital, where he was sadly pronounced dead later that same day. An investigation was launched shortly after his murder, with 2 rumored Shoot Instant members from Peckham being arrested and charged in connection. However, following a trial, both were acquitted of the murder charge.
Damn, they be getting away for real.
Daniel Duke, or Mimer. At the
Rest
end
in
of
peace.
2009 and start of 2010, the Peckham boys were basically the most well-known gang in London, often disrupting police and the community. The Peckham boys were even seen having a snowball fight with Met police officers in an old video, which has since been recovered from around the end of 2009. This snowball fight actually led to the police retreating back into their van and closing the door, where the Peckham boys continued to throw snowballs at them, even pulling the door back open. Now, going into
What the
2010,
fuck?
the war
Alright.
between Peckham and Brixton
What?
quickly became one of the most talked about on the streets at the time, with the Peckham gangs even beginning to rival one another at one point in 2010, with the gang from Letsham splintering off and rivaling the rest of Peckham. Now, during 2010, a prominent Shoot Instant member known as Nutty was on remand after allegedly purchasing guns in a different town. He didn't act alone, however, and a separate 17-year-old known as Samuel was also facing charges.
That's a dude or that's a woman? That look like a female, bro.
However, was let out under investigation. Nutty then offered Samuel money to take the fall on the gun charge at the trial. However, Samuel denied this, and in June 2010, only days before the trial was set to start, Samuel was shot dead.
I know it.
by
I know it.
members in a
I
car.
know it.
The car was then set on
I know it because I feel it though. He wasn't trying to do that, but that's hard.
by a PYG
I knew they was gonna get him.
CS, with
Or
Samuel
her.
still being inside the vehicle. This then led to yet another murder investigation being launched. Police quickly connected this incident to the gun charge, and even charged Shoot Instant member Nutty for the murder of Samuel. They also charged CS for burning the car used in the attack. And following a lengthy trial, Nutty was sentenced to life with a minimum of 32 years for
Oh
the
my
murder of
God.
while CS
32 years minimum. Oh my God.
was sentenced to 4 years for discarding of the car. Rest in peace, Samuel. Now, one of the main blocks that identified with the Peckham boys was that of the Lettsome estate, which around the 2010s splintered off from the Peckham gangs like PYG, SN1, OPB, and SI or Shoot Instant. The gang from the Lettsome estate then became known as the Lettsome G's, with this gang going on to rival their old friends from Peckham. Around this time, the PYG or Pecknarm Young Gunners gang became more prominently known under the name Anti. This war between Peckham and Lettsome then got very deadly as the year 2010 went on. On the 6th of September 2010, a shooting took place on the Lettsome estate. It's rumored the shooting was carried out by alleged Peckham gang members onto rivals from the Lettsome G's. Luckily,
Okay.
no one was injured during this shooting, and just a few hours later,
Not surprised. They always missing.
a member of the OPB gang known as Taz from Peckham sadly died after his bike was hit by a car within Peckham. Later that same day,
Damn.
after a mural was constructed for Taz, a member of the Lettsome gang known as Lil Grem would visit his mural to pay his respects to the fallen member. Upon arriving, however, Lil Grem was gunned down by a Peckham gang member known as Snap, who was in fact the older of Snap Capone.
Oh, nah. He was paying her respects. Imagine that. You gonna pay respects and then it's over for you. Bop, 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 bop. Oh my
Snap
goodness.
was later arrested
What?
for his murder and was sentenced to 35 years for the killing
That
of
is
Lil Grem.
crazy.
Rest in peace, both Taz and Lil Grem. Now, the Peckham
Nah.
boys, as well as their rivalries, were not the only heated gang feuds.
My camera good?
around
Alright,
this
it's good, it's good. I had to
time.
make
About a
sure real
40-minute
quick.
drive away, two groups of gangs in Newham would also be battling it out in the streets. However, I have made a video on this rivalry, so feel free to check it out.
I gotta tune in.
People
Oh, did I watch
this
that? I don't know
rivalry
yet.
Was Ace, who was an
Gotta
alleged
check.
custom house member. His killer was rumored to have been a CGE member known as Sammy Guns. I am saying this because in October 2010, Sammy Guns got himself into a rivalry with SN1 and anti-gang members. These Peckham members then rode out onto Newham and noticed 16-year-old Sammy Guns shooting him dead on the scene before fleeing moments later.
Yo.
An investigation was launched. However, the murder has remained unsolved. Rest in peace, Sammy Guns. Shortly after this, in December 2010, three gang members known as Vesta, Cookie, and Tiny Mantis, who were rumored to have been from the Crane Block gang, which previously splintered off from the Peckham gangs, and actually started to rival the Peckham boys. The three were chilling on the Pelican estate, which was the main block for the Crane Block gang. Whilst on the estate, a group of alleged Peckham boys noticed Vesta, who was shot dead. Both Cookie and Tiny Mantis were then stabbed multiple times.
My
Luckily, both
God.
Cookie and Tiny Mantis survived.
Oh, they survived? Okay.
Vesta sadly died, with another murder investigation being launched. Whilst police were investigating the murder, dozens of stop snitching leaflets were handed out to residents of the Pelican estate. However, despite this, an anti-member known as Tiny Nutty and a GMG member known as Jungle were arrested in connection to the murder. Both were charged and eventually found guilty, both being sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 26 and 30
Damn.
years. Rest in peace, Vesta. Going into 2011, a group of
R.I.P.
young gang members from Peckham began to experiment with music, this being PK, which is rumored to be an acronym for Peckham Kids. One of the more prominent members
When I think of PK, I think of that weed nigga, that PK.
PK was that of Killer
That's
Reese,
funny.
who released a freestyle in 2010, this garnering around 14,000 views since its release. Despite this, however, going into 2011, the war involving the gangs from Peckham, as well as their rivals from Brixton, would only worsen, with shootings, stabbings, and murders becoming a common occurrence within the streets of Peckham. Now, in 2011, a gang from the Summerley in Brixton, known as MZ, would be making noise in the streets. At the time, MZ was linked up with Gas, also from Brixton. However, later down the line, the two gangs would split and start rivaling one another. I'm saying
Damn.
this because in 2011, a prominent member of this MZ gang, known as Josie, was sadly killed in a car accident. This death affected Brixton heavily. It's even known that Josie was close with Sneakbo, who has gotten millions of views on his songs. Anyways, a few months after Josie's death, in November 2011, his funeral was set to take place in East Dulwich. Whilst the funeral was in session, however, an anti-member was in the area and noticed the large group of people mourning the loss of Josie.
No way he shot the funeral, bro. No way they shot the funeral, bro.
The anti-member then shot a man present at the funeral, 6
Oh
times
my
at point-blank range,
God,
killing him
bro.
on the scene. It's rumored another man was also shot, but luckily survived. An investigation was swiftly launched.
That is
and
crazy,
3 men
bro.
were arrested. However, all 3 went on to later be released as there was insufficient evidence to charge them, with this murder remaining unsolved.
Yo, and they got released, bro.
Rest in peace. Also, around this time at the end of November 2011, an old road rap video, presumably recorded in the years prior, was uploaded onto YouTube. This video featured Giggs, as well as dozens of other Peckham boys rapping on their block. Something that made this crazy, though, was the fact that during the rap video, a gunshot can be heard in the background, with Giggs seemingly not flinching at all. Also, dozens of guns were shown within the video, which is something that can nowadays carry a very long sentence if found in possession in the United Kingdom.
Your worker saying shit, getting flipped for the cheapest. Now the streets ain't the same, check we hurt the market.
Going into 2000,
Niggas trying to play it off like, ain't hear that. Come on, bro. You know you heard that, okay?
a large amount of the Peckham boys were arrested in different cases, resulting in the youngers taking over and releasing music. Now, in February 2012, Giggs was actually stopped by police whilst in a car. The car was then searched, and an illegal firearm was recovered. Giggs was then arrested and was on remand for around 6 months before the case was dropped, as the driver had even admitted to owning the gun. Giggs was acquitted and released toward the end of 2012. Also, around the start of 2012, some PYG gang members fell out with one another. This then resulted in a small group of members splintering off and creating a new gang known as Breadset. These Breadset gang members then rivaling their old friends from the Peckham sets. Now, following this, two
that's
teenagers
crazy.
from Peckham began to drop freestyles. These being Nutcase, who later became Quengface, as well as Preacher, who later started rapping under the name PS. In April 2012, Preacher or PS dropped a My Time session on YouTube, with this garnering just under 10,000 views. A few months later, in June 2012, Nutcase or Quengface also dropped a freestyle, in which you can actually hear him shouting out MOB or Mandem on Brandon. Following this release, in August 2012, Preacher and Young Rids dropped a MMTV freestyle, currently sitting on around 4.5 thousand views. In October 2012, armed police carried out multiple raids on prominent members of the Peckham Breadset gang. During these raids, an M16 rifle was seized, as well as 40,000 pounds of drugs. 2 gang members were then arrested and charged.
My
and in
God.
2013 were later
Now, 40,000 pounds, that's okay. They was moving.
raids. Now, remember how I said that Preacher and Nutcase or Narsty were rapping around this time? Well, they were associated with a younger Peckham set known as
Shout out PS and Queenface, man. That music fire, bro. No cap.
365 or Dank Boys, which you may have heard of, as this 365 gang later became known as Zone 2. Anyways, this 365 gang started to take music seriously around 2013. In January 2013, Young Mares and Dens, who later became known as D Squeezo, released a track titled Pumped Up. Nutcase or Quengface then dropped a track titled Pour It Up in May 2013. It's rumored, in fact, that during this music video, multiple other 365 members can be seen. A month later, in June 2013, Preacher or PS and Rids dropped a track titled Dream Chasers. Something that made this track eerie when looking back on it was the fact that the top comment on the video was by a commenter named Raheem Barton, and if you are familiar with UK drill, you will know that this was GB from Moscow 17, who at the time was friends with Preacher and Rids, with the comment saying Preacher and Rids going in as usual. Sadly, however, due to the gang politics in the area, GB was later killed by Peckham gang members in 2018.
Damn, bro.
Zone 2 and Moscow 17 rivalry. However, I'll talk
Off of a comment, bro.
about this later. Now, at the start of 2014, the violence between Peckham gangs as well as their rivals continued, and in February 2014, the rivalry between Peckham gangs and ABM from Stockwell began to get heated. On the 7th of February 2014, 22-year-old Sykes, who also was known as Tiny Giggs, would be on Clapham Road near Stockwell Tube Station. At around 5:30 p.m., Sykes was stabbed by alleged ABM members from Stockwell, sadly dying only moments later, which is crazy, as previously Stockwell and the Peckham boys were affiliated with one another. Shortly after this, a member of the Peckham Breadset retaliated and got into a fight with an ABM member in prison, with this even being recorded and uploaded onto YouTube. Rest in peace, Sykes. Following this, at the end of 2014, an anti-member from Peckham, known as M1, would be arrested after he was in a police chase in Peckham. During his arrest, he was discovered in possession of a loaded shotgun. M1 was charged with possession of a firearm with intent to cause fear of violence, possessing a prohibited weapon, and finally dangerous driving. In March 2015, M1 was found guilty and was sentenced to 6 years in prison, with the judge stating he had links to a gang in Southwark, as well as deeming him a dangerous person, and sentencing him to a further 3 years if he is still deemed dangerous at the end of his sentence.
Damn.
Now, as 2015 rolled around, the 365 crew, whose membership was mainly the youngest generation of Peckham, were making noise in the streets. It's believed, however, that at some point in 2015, 365 began to go by the name Zone 2. The main members of this gang included Quengface, previously Nutcase, case, PS previously Preacher and D Squeezo. This Zone 2 gang was actually affiliated with Moscow 17 from the nearby Brandon estate at the time, with it even being known that prominent Zone 2 members can be seen in Moscow 17 member Incognito's Rico music video, released in November.
Oh, they had them Giuseppe's on. Hold on, I think I used to have those. Hold on.
Nearby Brandon estate at the time, with it even being known that prominent Zone 2 members can be seen in Moscow 17 member Incognito's Rico.
Hey, I used to have those right there. I ain't gonna lie. Those was fire back in the day. You had those back in the day. You was that nigga, man. I can't lie to you. Giuseppe's, boy, now this is terrible. Don't ever get them. Do not put your feet in them, nothing. Throw them out.
Music video, released in November 2015. Following the release of this track, however, both Zone 2 and Moscow 17 began to rival one another, this feud quickly becoming the deadliest beef in the borough. It's alleged that around the beginning of 2016, a prominent member of Zone 2, known as PS, would rob the cousin of Loose Screw, who was a Moscow 17 member. After Loose Screw found out that his cousin had been robbed by PS, the pair had a fight, with it being believed that flick knives were drawn. However, no one was seriously injured. A Moscow 17 member known as Tizzy T attempted to resolve the tension between both sides, however ended up being stabbed by a Zone 2 gang member. Tizzy T was actually pronounced dead on the scene.
Yo, what? Wait, by his own gang member? By his own members? That's crazy.
By a miracle was brought back to life by paramedics. It's rumored that following this, Zone 2 and Moscow 17, who were once allied, now had a rivalry with one another due to the stabbing of Tizzy T. Now, it's also important to note that another gang was and has since become prominent within Peckham, this being HSQ or HS, which is an acronym for Hit Squad, and is believed to be a sub-gang containing Zone 2's most dangerous and active members. Their most prominent member is that of PS. Zone 2 are also affiliated with YPB, or Younger Peckham Boys, who also have prominent rappers like Gully. Now, going into 2016, the UK drill scene was seriously exploding, with 6-7 from Brixton beginning to really shine in the scene. The collective dropped a track titled Take It There in August 2015, as well as Live Corn by LD at the end of 2014. Both of these tracks gaining millions of views.
They do a number though.
Gigs from SN1 saw this group of rappers who were making waves in the UK drill scene and hopped on a feature with them. This track was later released in February 2016 and was titled Let's Lurk. This track was an instant hit and has since garnered around 22 million views on YouTube and 19 million streams on Spotify. Anyways, in March 2016, Shoot Instant member Snap Capone, who had been making noise in the UK drill scene, previously dropping tracks like his Daily Duppy. Anyways, he was arrested in connection to a massive county lines operation, with it being believed that they were running drugs from Southampton to London. Snap Capone was charged in relation to this and was eventually found guilty and sentenced to 6 years for the drug trafficking. Now, during 2016, the rivalry between Zone 2 and Moscow 17 would be raging. This was first seen in June 2016, when 15-year-old Rizzy Ramps from Moscow 17 was noticed by two members of the Zone 2 gang.
Oh my
Rizzy Ramps
God.
was then chased through a fun fair in Burgess Park, which is actually the park that separates Zone 2 territory and Moscow 17 territory. Rizzy Ramps was stabbed multiple times in the stomach and back. The injuries were so severe, in fact, that it's even known that his organs were exposed. An air ambulance arrived on the scene shortly after the attack and transported 15-year-old Rizzy Ramps to hospital, where he luckily survived.
He survived that with his organs out? Nah, that's crazy. That's a stage.
At the start of July,
That's strong.
Prominent Moscow 17 member Knockout Ned would be in a Camberwell McDonald's at around midnight. A Zone 2 member then noticed him. The Zone 2 gang member then ran inside the McDonald's and stabbed Knockout Ned in the neck. Police and emergency services were called to the scene seconds after.
Bro, this is the definition of like, I see you, it's on site. We're not talking none of that, bro. We on all that. Damn.
Ned was rushed to a hospital where he luckily survived. This incident was later rapped about in a Zone 2 track titled No Censor, in which Unruly Bad rapped, "Ned just wanted a cheeseburger. Max, what you do that for? Knockout's juice gets spilled on the floor. Huh, you just started a war." This potentially meant that the stabbing of Ned had now marked a war between Zone 2 and Moscow 17, which was only going to get worse as the months went on. A few weeks following the stabbing of Knockout Ned, on the 21st of July 2016, Giggs released the track Whippin' Excursion. This track was also a hit for Giggs, and has garnered around 15 million YouTube views and 21 million Spotify streams. Also around this time, another rapper was making a huge noise in the UK drill scene, this being Shoki, who was affiliated with the 814 gang from Lewisham. This 814 gang was actually a splintered off set from the larger Ghetto Boys. Anyways, on the 4th of August 2016, Shoki released a Daily Duppy freestyle, which was taken extremely well and has since since garnered around 2.5 million views.
Damn.
Sadly, however, Shoki wasn't able to see this success, as a day later, on the 5th of August 2016, Shoki was killed by a gang member from a Peckham-based set known as
Damn.
SNR. This SNR gang was once affiliated with the Peckham Boys as well as YPB. However, it's since...
Do you think he would still got them views though if he died? If he didn't die? Cause I feel like a lot of times when people die, of course, I feel like their music number goes up because they're dead now. It's like, damn, now we gotta. I want to tune in even more to see like how he was as a rapper and stuff like that. I feel like that could be another part of it too. I don't know if he would get the same views. Y'all let me know in the comments though if y'all think he would get the same amount of views if he was alive. You feel me? Instead of dead.
believed
That's
that
crazy
they
though.
began to rival one another. On the 5th of August 2016, 16-year-old Shoki, or Leandro Osameki, as well as a few hundred other teens, attended a house party hosted by a 16-year-old girl in Peckham. Around 25 seconds after arriving at the house party, a 15-year-old gang member from the SNR gang based in Peckham got into an argument with Shoki. This argument sadly ended in 16-year-old Shoki being stabbed twice in the chest by the SNR member. The attacker then fled in
Bro.
self-defense, running home.
25 seconds getting to the park. 25, bro. And it's already we getting to it, bro. We ain't gonna talk too much. Let's get to it. That's crazy.
Called to the scene. Sadly,
Already arguing,
30
stabbing.
minutes after arriving at the party and being attacked, Shoki was pronounced dead on the scene. A
Damn,
murder investigation
RIP.
was then launched, with the news that Shoki had died beginning to fly around social media. A 15-year-old boy was arrested 2 days after in connection to his murder and was charged with Shoki's murder. In the end, however, after a full trial, the 15-year-old claimed self-defense and was acquitted of the murder in 2017.
Oh my
Rest
God,
in
that's
peace,
crazy.
Shoki. Since his killer's
RIP,
release from
bro.
prison, he has featured in multiple interviews that show his side of the story. The SNR member has also got music video.
Hold on. Y'all want to watch that? Let me know in the comments. Y'all want to watch that or not? That's crazy though.
Is featured in multiple interviews that show his side of the story. The SNR member has also got music videos on YouTube that have since garnered hundreds of thousands of views. It's believed, however, that if Shoki was still alive today, he would have been one of, if not the biggest UK drill rapper. Dave even paid tribute to Shoki on Instagram and had even shouted him out on previous tracks, example being Thiago Silva, in which he rapped S with the S from the S. Ask Shoki Dustman down with a mask like Toby. Rest in peace, Shoki. Later in September 2016, Dave released his highly anticipated EP titled 6 Paths. This EP featured 6 tracks that all have garnered millions of views and streams. On song 4, titled Breathe, Dave actually made a reference to the Peckham gangs and their feud with Brixton, in which he rapped, "Man jump off road, they wanna judge, man. Same man say, free my G's, can't ever tell my young boys trap I ain't cool with the gas like PYG." PYG being a Peckham gang known as Pecknarm Young Gunners.
Yeah.
Near the end of 2016, Zone 2 really started to shine within the UK drill scene. In August 2016, Narsty or Quengface, P or PS, and Scully released a track titled 2 Flows. This track was seriously cold and rude. During the first verse, PS questioned why he was beefing Moscow 17, rapping, "But it's 10-0. Someone still tell me why I'm beefing these neeks." Zone 2 then ended the year with a end-of-year freestyle. This freestyle featured Narsty or Quengface, Denz, who was now going by D Squeezo, as well as his younger Young D Squeezo, with this freestyle garnering just under 100,000 views. Zone 2 weren't the only ones making noise, however, and also around this time, 2 members of Moscow 17 who were directly opposing them, being GB and Loose, released a track titled Moscow March. This was a seriously cold track and featured multiple disrespectful lyrics aimed toward the Zone 2 gang. Sadly, however, only days following the release of these tracks, another person was killed as a result of an internal conflict with the Peckham gangs. On New Year's Eve,
I want to know what the body count is for this whole video throughout just the whole gang, bro. Like the whole body count, bro. How many bodies was taken, bro?
24-year-old Robo, or Tiny Blacks, was chased through Peckham by
That's crazy.
gang members. Sadly, he was stabbed multiple times. Emergency services were called to the scene. However, sadly, only minutes after he was stabbed, 24-year-old Tiny Blacks was pronounced dead. A postmortem
Damn.
examination
RIP.
determined his cause of death was multiple knife wounds. Yet another murder investigation was launched. It's rumored that the death of Tiny Blacks was a result of an internal dispute within Peckham gangs. Tiny Blacks was actually loved in Peckham and had supposedly featured in multiple music videos. Rest in peace, Robo, or Tiny Blacks. In March 2017, Giggs featured twice on Drake's 2017 album titled More Life. One of the songs was titled No Long Talk and currently sits on 100.
Wait, he had a song with Drake, and I didn't know about this? No Long Talk. I gotta see if I know that song, bro. That's crazy though. Damn. That's tough.
6 million views.
136
whilst the
mil,
second
bro.
titled KMT has garnered around 180
Okay,
million.
now I get who is Gigs and why. Yo, KMT, that's a banger. I never knew about Gigs though, but KMT is a banger, bro. Shout out to Drake, shout out to Gigs, man.
Crazy as this
That's
just
crazy.
shows how big Gigs has become.
Nah,
Despite
facts.
This, however, the war between Peckham's Zone 2 and Moscow 17 began to get deadly in 2017 and 18. On the 5th of June 2017, 17-year-old Abdurrahman Mohammed, or Abs, who was believed to not be in fact involved with any of the local gangs, but was rumored to be related to members of Zone 2. Anyways, 2 members of the Moscow 17 gang would be riding around Peckham, looking for rivals. After a few minutes, the pair noticed 17-year-old Abs, who wasn't believed to be a member of the Zone 2 gang. The Moscow 17 members then chased Abs after noticing him. Abs made it a few meters, before he was sadly stabbed in the heart by the Moscow 17 members, with the attackers then fleeing. Emergency services arrived on the scene and tried to save his life. However, despite the best attempts of medical professionals, sadly, 17-year-old Abs was pronounced dead.
Bro, that is so sad because he wasn't even a gang member. He's a family member of gang members, bro. So it's like he's associated by affiliate. Like it's so crazy, bro. Innocent kid, bro, had family members in the streets, and he has to pay for it. That's sad, bro. R.I.P., bro. No cap.
Both Incognito as well as Jet Black from the Moscow 17 gang were arrested and charged for the murder. The pair went on trial. However, following a long trial, both were acquitted and released from prison. Rest in peace, Abs. Later in July 2017,
sad.
Zone 2 released one of their first albums titled No Hook. This album featured 7 songs that have all gained hundreds of thousands of views. Standout tracks on this album include No Hook, featuring Quengface, PS, and Trizak. This track even getting a music video. Zone 2 Step, featuring PS, Quengface, Trizak, and Scully, and finally Most Hated, featuring Quengface and PS. This album really put the Zone 2 collective on the map and gained them a lot of attention within the streets, leading to them becoming one of the biggest UK drill groups out at the time. Zone 2 weren't the only ones releasing albums around this time, and in October 2017, Giggs released his album titled Womp 2 Dem. This was a 13-song album and had features from Popcorn, DEE, Dave, and Young Thug, which is crazy.
That's
Also
tough.
around This time, it appeared
That's
that Zone
tough.
2 and 410 had seemingly stopped rivaling one another and made a song, because remember, OC from Brixton later became known as 410, whilst the Peckham Boys gangs became known as Zone 2. This meant that after decades of rivaling one another, the younger generations of Brixton as well as Peckham simply stopped the decade-long feud and linked up in the studio, releasing a Voice of the Streets freestyle.
Hey, that's tough. You gotta commend that people could come together, bro. They trying to stop this shit that was happening before, try to come together, bro.
Which
Okay.
has since garnered around
What's up?
1.3 million views.
Gotta
Both
respect
groups
it.
dropped another track in 2021 titled No Fibs, this sitting on just under 1 million views. Recently, CS, who was a Peckham OG, actually responded to this link up on Snapchat, writing Zone 2 X410, Lul, the game has changed. Now, going into 2018, rappers like Quengface would be dropping serious UK drill bangers. Quengface started the year by releasing a track titled Tour de Op Block. This song has since become a UK drill classic, garnering 1.4 million views. Quengface followed this up with a track titled 3 Stripes, which has also gained a good amount of attention.
I'm gonna have to do some more digging with Quengface. It seems like he dropping some bangers. Okay,
Sitting on
okay.
around 2.4 million views. Within this song, he mentioned that he didn't mind sliding on a Spartan, or a Harlem Spartan, which was a gang from Kennington. Despite this, however, the war between Zone 2 and Moscow 17 was still raging, with it becoming a common occurrence to see Snapchats portraying both sides riding out onto each other. One of these, in fact, portrayed Zone 2 members traveling around the Brandon estate, home to the Moscow 17 gang, and pressuring anyone they drove past. Sadly, however, days later, a Moscow 17 member was shot dead by alleged Zone 2 gang members, this being GB, who was even once friends with Zone 2 members, before both sides began to rival one another. On the 5th of May 2018, 4 gang members allegedly associated with Zone 2 would be driving around the Brandon estate. The 4 Zone 2 members noticed a group of Moscow 17 members. It's rumored that within the group was GB, as well as other prominent Moscow members. Whilst driving past, the Zone 2 members retrieved guns and started firing from their moving car. GB was struck twice and sadly died seconds later in the arms of another Moscow member known as Incognito. It's rumored in fact that the Zone 2 members actually wanted to kill Incognito. An investigation was swiftly launched. However, despite an entire investigation, little to no arrests have been made in connection to the murder of GB. His friends and family were
Throughout this video, bro, it's really been a lot of unsolved murders, bro. Like, it's only, like, I feel like it's like 70-30 now. No cap, 70% unsolved murders, 30%
marching to
solved.
Moscow March. coach. Rest in peace, GB. A few days following the death of GB, his close friend Incognito released a tribute track titled Blessed, with this currently sitting on around 3 million views. Within this song, Incognito paid his tribute to GB, as well as dissing rival Zone 2 members. Sadly, however, just a few months later, Incognito as well would fall victim to the streets. Around a month following this, in June 2018, two Zone 2 members, known as D Squeezo and Lil D Squeezo, approached a man they thought to be trapping. This man was known as SJ. An altercation between SJ and the two Zone 2 members then ensued. Sadly, SJ was stabbed multiple times by the pair, who then fled after the attack.
Damn.
Sadly, SJ was pronounced dead after emergency services rushed to his aid, with yet another murder investigation being launched. Not long after the murder of SJ, D Squeezo was arrested and charged, as well as his younger Lil D Squeezo, who was also charged. The pair were found guilty, and D Squeezo was sentenced to 27 years, whilst Lil D Squeezo was given 15 years. Rest in peace, SJ. Around a month following this, in August 2018, Incognito from Moscow 17, who was one of the group's biggest rappers, would be chilling with a younger Moscow 17 member on the Brandon estate. Whilst on the estate, the pair noticed a man wearing a Rolex, both Incognito as well as the younger member, then walked towards the man, attempting to rob his Rolex. What they weren't expecting, however, was the fact that the man had retrieved a lock knife. Incognito was then chased for a few seconds by the man, as it's rumored he was unarmed. Incognito was stabbed twice in the neck, with the younger Moscow member fighting back and stabbing the man. Despite this, however, Incognito was pronounced dead moments later. Whilst the man sought medical attention and recovered in hospital. Shortly after the attack, Kenneth Umezi, who is believed to not have been involved with the local gangs, was arrested and charged in connection to the murder, however was later acquitted under the basis of self-defense. Rest in peace, Incognito. Now, during 2000,
Niggas trying to rob nigga, that's slow.
Killa Kai, who was credited to have organized
Never know what anybody got on them.
both Ghetto and Peckham in the summer of 2008. Anyways, Killa Kai returned to the UK drill scene in 2018, dropping the track titled History of Peckham, whereas I'm sure you can tell, he rapped about the history of the Peckham boys, as well as the other gangs. Within this track, he stated that he takes it old school, and it was SI or Shoot Instant to PYG, or Pecknarm Young Gunners, two heavily influential sets involved with the history of Peckham's gangs. Now, at the end of 2018, Quengface released his highly anticipated Lightwork freestyle. Within this track, he stated that all of his ops were tired and needed to retire, as they were Pecknarm K or Pecknarm Killer, but no Zone 2 members had been killed.
Hey, he could talk his shit though. If they died, hey, and they still living, walking around free. You could talk as much shit as you want.
This freestyle
No
was
cap.
quickly removed from YouTube, but has since been saved and re-uploaded. Despite this, however, it currently sits on 3 million Spotify streams, which is crazy. 2018 was also the year that other rappers from Zone 2 began to make noise. Example being Karma, Mad Max, and Snoop, who all did numbers around this time. Now, going into 2019, another Peckham legend known as Raver was released following his July 2007 arrest and sentencing. Upon his release, he began to release music, with these songs raking in hundreds of thousands of views. Now, it's rumored that in 2019, PS from Zone 2 or Hit Squad often posted up in Edmonton dissing the Edmonton-based gang 3x3. This was mainly due to the fact that PS was banned from Peckham and had to live with his mum in Edmonton for a few months. Anyways, during 2019, E1 from 3x3 would end up catching PS lacking, with the entire incident being recorded by E1 and ZT. The pair then made PS run, with E1 and ZT chasing him on camera.
Whoa.
I don't care about all of
They had PS. Whoa. Okay, hold on. This is crazy. Hold on.
your beef in it. I don't care about your beef. I got beef down south, bro. I got bare beef down south. I don't care about your beef.
Say nothing, PS.
You get me?
Mum's life. This Edmonton, E1, ZT. You're gonna hear about us. You're gonna hear about us. Even Trizak. I see Trizak making Trizak's making cheeky snaps as well. What's Trizak on?
It's not cheeky. You lot are moving.
Fam,
You lot are moving mad.
what do you mean moving mad, bro? You're coming to our hood. Do we see us coming to Peckham and do these cheeky snaps?
We don't come.
Bro, we don't come to Peckham and do these snaps, bro. We don't come to Peckham. PS!
Nah, they forcing it.
Zone 2!
Days following this
Nah, that's crazy.
3x3 would go to PS's mum's house and would kick down her door while she was inside with PS.
Look at this silly boy, PS.
Hey, Future, come outside.
Hey, silly.
Hey, come outside. Ask him if his mum's front door's alright, mate. The GS.
Whoa.
It's rumored that following this, alleged Zone 2 members then retaliated and shot up Edmonton. This is something that was later wrapped in Zone 2's disrespectful track No Censor, released in December 2019, in which Quengface rapped, "PS just shot up the 9, now man's doing up cheeky snaps." E1 later responded to this bar in his popular track Enfield or Tottenham, where he rapped, "Apparently you shot up the 9. PS tell me who you slapped. You weren't doing up cheeky snaps. When you bucked me in Zeds, you was doing up dash. Panic heart attack. When you saw the GMs outside of your mums." The No Censor track was actually released not long after these incidents.
Now I'm not gonna lie, showing to the mom's crib is wild disrespectful. And he kicked down the door. Nah, bro, that's why. But he got back shot. He shot. He didn't get nobody, but he shot. He shot back. Okay.
Unruly Bad.
Damn.
Quengface.
That's
Trizak,
insane.
B. Gotti, and LR. This song made a huge wave in the scene due to how rude it was. As I'm sure you can tell by the name of the song, this track really had no censors, which was something UK drill listeners had gotten used to listening to around this time. As UK drill was beginning to become heavily censored around this time, Moscow's 17 members, as well as Harlem members, linked up following this and released a response track titled He's Dead. This also garnering millions of views. Going into 2020, another rapper from Peckham began to make noise in the streets, this being Gully, who was a breath of fresh air in the UK drill scene, having some of the coldest flows and ad-libs I think I've ever heard.
Hey, shout out to Gully, man. He's tough, bro.
August 2020,
No
he
cap.
dropped the track Video Vixen, garnering 309,000 views. A month later, he dropped Yingdat, which actually got a remix in November 2020. This remix featuring Trizak, Backroad G, Tollers, and PS Hit Squad. This sitting on around 650,000 views, which was very impressive. Despite these views, however, in 2022, Gully found himself wrapped up in a murder case, which has since been taken to trial, and has resulted in Gully being given a life sentence, meaning that he somewhat threw his promising music career away. On the 16th
Damn,
of July,
bro.
2022,
I was wondering what happened to Gully because I reacted to one of his videos. I think it was the Buddha B. And I was like, where's he at now? Okay,
LJ, who
damn.
was allegedly associated with the DQN crew, was sitting in his car. Whilst in his car, Gully approached him and asked what ends he was from. By the time LJ had replied, he was stabbed twice in the neck,
Damn.
with the attacker fleeing seconds later. Despite the injuries, LJ transported himself to hospital, where he was sadly pronounced dead that same day, with another murder investigation being launched. Just hours following this attack, Gully was on an Instagram Live talking to his fans, when all of a sudden police raided his home and placed him under arrest for the murder.
I'm naked. Can I get dressed?
Someone get a towel, someone.
I'm naked. There's clothes in the living room.
Keep coming down. Keep coming down.
There's clothes in the living room. Let me get dressed, man.
Keep coming down. Keep coming down.
Let me get dressed. Look,
Keep
I'm
coming
dressed.
down.
I'm dressed. Let me get
Stop
dressed.
there. Stop there.
Oh my God,
Stop.
you're mad.
Take 2 steps forward. Take 2 steps forward.
Boss, I'm not
Listen,
moving. I'm not
listen,
moving.
Godfrey, you're under arrest for murder, okay?
not
Listen
moving.
exactly what I'm saying. Put
I'm
the
not
phone on that radiator. Put the phone on the radiator. Do not make any sudden move.
Hey, yo.
Gully was found guilty of the murder and was sentenced to life with a minimum of 24 years.
God
Crazy,
damn.
as Gully could have made it out with music, but chose to focus on the road life. Rest in peace, LJ. In August 2022,
Man, Gully was nice, I ain't gonna lie.
paid respect to Huss from OC, which was the Brixton gang that later became known as 410. Huss was actually the one charged and found guilty for the incident that resulted in an innocent man being gunned down when Brixton members noticed Snap Capone and Butch in August 2008. Also in 2022, Quengface and CB released 2 tracks, one titled Machines and the other Plankton, both garnering hundreds of thousands of views. Quengface wasn't done there, however, and around the end of 2022, he as well as Giggs were spotted on social media blocking off roads in Peckham for a music video. This music video was titled Water and was later released in March 2023, currently sitting on just under 3 million views. In behind-the-scene images, around 150 Peckham gang members can be seen blocking off roads for the music video. Now this brings me to the end of today's video. If you have learned anything from this video, make sure that it's to stay out of the streets.
Facts.
Or as far away from them as possible.
Facts.
Road life you see these rappers living is very fake.
Facts.
It never leads to jail or death. By the time that
Facts.
some of these big rappers realize this, however, they are either dead or in jail. As
For
always,
sure,
rest
bro.
in peace to everyone mentioned within this video. My thoughts and prayers go out to the friends and family of anyone I mentioned in this video. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe as it helps me create better content.
Hey, man, shout out to UK Joe Plug for the video, man. That was a great video, man. I have definitely all the knowledge I needed from this. And I'm not gonna lie, bro, there was a lot of deaths in this whole video. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, especially for like the younger side. Like, there was a 10-year-old, 15, 16, like, it's just how young like people were getting killed, bro. That'd be getting me. I'd be like, damn, that's sad, bro. Like they had a whole life ahead of them, but they was in the wrong direction, or sometimes they were just at the wrong place at the wrong time, and that shit is just crazy, bro. You just can't control your life, bro. So it just happens, like especially for the civilian. That's why I feel for the most, like the people that weren't even gang affiliated at all. Like they was living their life, bro, and next thing you know, they're dead because niggas outside don't have aim, or your mistaken identity, or shit like that. That shit made me sad, bro. But yeah, dub video from UK Drill Plug, man. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure you put them post notifications on, and let me know the best part of the video that you like, man. Make sure you keep showing love. I made this is a long video, man. Make sure I did this for y'all though. Make sure you like the video, subscribe up, comment. Keep this shit going up. I appreciate the love y'all been showing me. I'm gonna keep dropping. You know me, man. We dropping daily. Love y'all niggas. Until then, I am out of here.